Missouri School of Journalism, welcome to Global Journalist. I'm David Reed. Here are the sounds from the very first day of what would turn out to be the revolution in Egypt, as recorded by documentary filmmaker Karim Hakim. The crowd is chanting, "No violence, no violence." But then police officers in riot gear fire tear gas canisters and start breaking up the protest. In the final scene from this clip of the film, Half Revolution, Karim turns the camera on himself, grimacing in pain from being tear gassed. Half Revolution is one of about 40 feature films being screened this week in Colombia during the True False Film Fest. The two of the directors, Karim Hakim and Viktor Kossakovksy of Russia, spoke with Global Journalist. Karim never planned to film a documentary about the mass protests that brought down Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak. He and his friends brought their cameras and camera phones to Cairo's Tahrir Square as participants in a sit-down demonstration to simply record what they were doing. But as Karim tells us, the conflict soon escalated.
That was on the very first day of the revolution, January 25th, in the middle of Tahrir Square, just right when the police kind of started their first waves of attacks.
And you were just in the crowd, and you happened to be...
Yeah, I was in the crowd. I was filming the whole day, and I think that was like a kind of a chaotic moment where I caught myself, kind of filmed myself by accident. I think I was tripping over a bush. Yeah. So I was running away from the police.
So you called this an accidental film. When did you realize that you and Omar had the makings of a movie?
Well, we started filming just by virtue of the action happening around the house, and we wanted to get the footage, just at least for for kind of archival purposes and historical purposes. But the first day on January 25th was a very long day. There was a lot of action happening, and we ended up getting arrested that night at 1:30 in the morning down in Tahrir Square when the police attacked the sit-in, and a lot of people died. They were using live rounds and right. A lot of shotguns, and a lot of people got shot that night. And
I understand you got shot in the head with a rubber bullet at one point? Yeah,
that was on the 28th, January 28th. I got shot. Yeah, I was lucky. I mean, I got hit, but it was luckily bounced off me.
And so how long were you behind bars?
Well, we got arrested that first night at 1:30 in the morning. The police attacked the sit-in and basically just started grabbing anybody, even just near the square. And we got separated, and I ended up being reunited in the box in the police truck with Omar. And it was a pretty scary situation. We didn't really know what was going to happen to us. Luckily, people, they actually brought us to jail, and we played stupid. We played
right.
Like we were tourists, and we eventually got out that night. So.
And they gave you the camera back?
No, they didn't know we had a camera on us. I mean, I had it in my pocket, and they didn't notice it.
And again, when did you realize you had the makings of a movie?
Well, we realized after that, basically after we were released, we were kicking ourselves that we hadn't managed to film that particular sequence of events. And I think we realized that we had to film every second because we just didn't know what was going to happen to us, and it was really compelling stuff. And so we started to do that, and after the first, I'd say 3-4 days, we realized that I needed to follow characters. I mean, I love to do character-based films,
right.
So in the chaos, I realized that my circle of friends and family were in fact the characters. So started to film all of us, during the day and especially at night, down in the streets and also at home, talking about the situation and trying to get some perspective on it. And those conversations really started to develop into character threads, and I realized that if I just continued doing what we were doing, that we would probably most likely get a movie out of it. But like I said, it was pretty accidental. It didn't really occur to us until a few days in.
About how many people were involved in collecting audio and video for this doc, and also being subject for it?
Well, there's eight main characters in the group, and four of us were actively filming.
And did any of those 8 people, were they harmed?
Well, Philippe was pulled out of a cab and taken under a bridge and beaten up by like 50 guys, and they were basically kind of in the those particular days, they were really looking after foreigners, and anybody with cameras were being beaten. Any foreign-looking people were being intimidated and being told to stay home, and so yeah, he got roughed up. Yeah, and I got roughed up. I got beat by 100 thugs in the street, and Omar also got threatened a few times with a couple knives and swords. And
what motivated you to keep coming back?
Well, I mean, it just it was sort of like an obligation, really, that we had to do, and we had to continue filming. As to be essentially witnesses to what was happening and witnesses to history. So we had really no choice. I mean, even though it was dangerous, sometimes I felt the safest actually when I was in the street, and surrounded by protesters. I actually was the safest time. The hardest time was when I'm sitting at home at night and paranoia is setting in and anxiety, and you're kind of almost frozen. You can't move and you can't think. You don't know what's happening. These were the hardest times, actually.
Right. Now, a True/False reviewer writes that you and Omar picked up what the camera crews missed of the Tahrir Square demonstrations. What are a few examples of the scenes that you captured that the broadcast news crews missed?
Well, we got some. I mean, we have just amazing moments. Tanks rolling through town, police cars on fire, running street battles. But also, one of my favorite scenes in the film is when, on January 28th, when the police basically, they ran out of ammunition, they ran out of gas, they ran out of bullets. They basically threw everything they had at the crowds and got overwhelmed. And there's a scene in the film where basically this battalion of police are basically out of bullets and get surrounded by the mob, and basically people are escorting them out. They're not being harmed, they're being basically escorted off the battlefield. And I thought that was such a powerful moment where, the police had been shooting at people all day and killing people and maiming people and blinding people. A lot of people with, lost eyes in the revolution. And when they had their chance for retribution and for revenge, the people kept their calm and kept their cool and peacefully, escorted these police out of the situation. And just the look on the policemen's faces, I mean, they were so scared, but at the same time, it was very, this kind of look of disbelief that they weren't being torn apart by the crowd. It was an incredible scene. People on the street were really, in those early days, were very happy to see cameras in the street. It really kind of gave them a bit of courage as well, and emboldened them because, I think the key to this revolution was the amount of cameras on the street, the amount of witnesses, and the footage that was, the world has now been able to see through these documentary films that, they weren't able to see with the news coverage and these kind of balcony shots and long shots into crowds. And I think that's the problem, is that with the news coverage, people just didn't have any context of really what was happening, nor could they kind of feel it on a personal level. Everything was politicized and generalized in terms of in the way kind of journalists cover this particular event. Things were really more generalized. And I think that after you see our film, you'll see very, very specific moments, and you have characters that kind of lead you through this experience, so that you have a frame and you have some context, and you have a personal reference, an emotional reference as well to kind of the waves of emotion that are going up and down. And sometimes you feel amazing, like euphoric and happy, and then in like 5 minutes later you can just be like thrown down in the dumps and depressed and anxious and paranoid. And so this is really what the film allows the audience is to feel it, to experience the revolution through our emotions and through just the human story. And I think that's why the film is resonating with audiences, because it sort of gives a personal spin to the revolution that otherwise had been experienced in a very impersonal way, I think, through television journalism.
And what are your thoughts about what's going to happen in the coming months? Are you optimistic or pessimistic that you will actually move to a democracy with the military stepping back?
Well, that's really remains to be seen. I mean, in a sense, I'm fairly pessimistic about the political process in Egypt, because there's so many dirty games being played right now, and the counter-revolution is really in full swing, and the military is doing all they can to pretend nothing happened last January. They've put over 15,000 people through military trials. They're really trying to clamp down on activists. Obviously, all the violence that's occurred, the massacres that have happened. It's actually quite a bad situation right now in Egypt in terms of a lot of things. The economy is terrible. There's a really tight controls on media. It's a long list of things that are happening, but essentially the military is at the center of all these dirty tricks. And I think that they're going to have to, eventually they're going to have to back down, and they're going to have to compromise and really create an honest dialogue, I think, with all the various political parties that have been emboldened by the revolution. But on the other hand, I'm very optimistic, because the people themselves in Egypt have changed fundamentally. I mean, they've sort of broken this wall of fear, and there's just an explosion of expression happening on the streets. I mean, the graffiti art scene is just exploding all over the streets of Cairo. You see amazing images and political statements, and also just young kids rapping political songs that had never been able to express themselves in this way. And I think that the Egyptian people themselves will never go back to the way they were. So it is the beginning of the end to the dictatorship, but it's going to take time, to unravel all of this. So I'm not impatient. I think it's just simply going to have to take a bit of time and run its course.
Do you think that if the process is going too slow and people are upset and go to the streets again and start mass protests, do you think there's going to be a sequel?
Oh yeah, of course. I think the only thing that has any true political power at this moment is the street and is Tahrir Square. Even though we've had these parliamentary elections and, they were largely, it was questionable, elections that happened. So I think it's going to take time for the actual political process to work. But I think that any more, dirty tricks that happen, there's always going to be a response from the street. And I think that's really the only way that the revolution will have their demands heard, is to go out and mobilize and be in the street.
Right. What does your family think about what you're doing? You have some family in Boston still, or?
No, I don't. I have just old friends in Boston. My mom, she's moved to France.
You have a son?
I have my son Zayn is 2. He's 2 years old, and my wife Samaher is she's at home in Cairo right now, and I'm just at New York. Going to be a true false just for 4 or 5 days, and then I go back to Cairo. But of course, we're all part of it. Everybody's in some way part of the revolution, and there's no denying it. So I mean, our role is really to spread the message out in Western audiences and Western, through radio stations and press relating to the film, is really to spread the word of what is happening in Egypt and create some awareness amongst people over here on this side of the Atlantic to really understand what the situation is, and it's a fluid situation. Things are moving, things are happening all the time there. But ultimately, I would say the people are really in charge, of their own destiny. And I think that it's gonna be a very windy path, but it eventually will straighten out, I hope, into something that we'll all be, happy to live with.
Well, finally, let me ask you, we're going to be watching the movie this weekend, and I'll be anticipating hearing your comments after the movie. But how are audiences reacting to your film?
Well, I think people at Sundance, I was really happy. People were so kind of shocked. I think they didn't understand all the nuances of what happened in the revolution, and I think that they loved the fact that they could kind of follow the revolution through us and get to know us as people and characters, and really, follow the emotions of the characters. And I think that's what's interesting about the film. A lot of people were crying at the end of the movie. They would come and tell me, I was laughing at that moment, and then I found myself crying, half a minute later, and they just were almost kind of overwhelmed by it. The film is about really a human story about a group of people, family and friends who love each other, who struggle to stay together. And that metaphor of staying together is really what I would love to talk about and love to express, to the audiences there, because the powers that be are constantly trying to divide us, and we have to really look inside and see if we have the strength to stay together. And I think that if we do, then nothing can stop us.
Right. Well, I commend you for your bravery, and I hope that that the revolution is over before too long, and that you keep safe.
Yeah, thank you.
Before we continue the program with Victor Kossakovksy, I want to remind everyone that you can view or listen to this program anytime by downloading our podcasts at globaljournalist.org. You can also find interesting articles, photos, and interviews related to today's program on our website. Please send us questions or comments via globaljournalist@kbia.org or our Facebook page. Victor Kossakovksy, who's joining us by phone, is the recipient of the festival's True Vision Award for advancing the art of nonfiction filmmaking. The award says Kossakovksy has built a body of work that reveals new truths about our world in each of his frames. Welcome to the program. Hello. Victor's new documentary is called Vivan las Antipodas. Victor takes viewers on journeys to 4 sets of the Earth's antipodes. Antipodes are the places on the planet where you'd end up if you drilled directly through the center of the globe to the other side. So, Victor, what was your? You've said that you show stories rather than tell stories. Could you explain what you tried to show viewers with Vivan las Antipodas?
It's very easy, actually. When we are a child, we all have very interesting ideas. We have all interesting questions about the world, right? For example, where dreams come from, or how people live in the opposite side of the world, and if they go upside down, or if they go upside down, then why they don't fall down, for example. Or there is Santa Claus or not.
Yes.
All these questions came to your brain when you were very child, but then you know that there is no Santa Claus, and there is gravity. That's where people they don't go upside down. Such things, but in fact, still, it's very interesting cinematic questions, right? It's very visual questions, and my privilege is that I actually I don't have sense of humor, and I don't have fantasy, but I still remember my questions when I was young, and I'm trying to make them truth. So I'm trying to film my questions when I was a child. So that's what it is.
Well,
I'm trying. The reason I'm doing it because I believe everybody has such questions, and that's why film can be for big audience. It's not like you're taking. I don't want to start with particular questions. I want to start with visual idea, which very simple to everybody and visually touching everybody. So I'm trying to reach audience in a big cinema screen, not on TV.
Well, it was a beautiful film. I saw it yesterday. You've said you hope people see something they've never seen before in your films. What are some examples of that in Vivan las Antipodas?
Yeah, it's very strange to talk about. It's very strange to talk about. It's better to watch it, actually. But
well, I like the way you juxtaposed, for instance, the sleepy little Argentinian rural scene with Shanghai's bustling urban scenes.
Just imagine that you are here now, and in same time someone in the opposite side of the world. For example, you are sad today, right? And now you are sad and you're alone. And what you will feel if you know that in same time, in opposite side of the world, someone is also sad in same time. Or maybe you're crying and someone is also crying. What do you feel if you know this? Or what you will feel if you know that he is laughing and he doesn't know about your problem? It's kind of it gives you complex of life. Sometimes you're sad, but somebody happy. Sometimes you are happy, but sometimes very unhappy. In same times, it gives you complicity of the life, I believe.
You also had some pretty interesting characters in this film. The two bridge keepers in for example. How did you pick these places and these people?
It's intuition, it's sometimes it's absolutely accidental. Sometimes it's just, a documentary is the same like a casting for fiction film. You travel. I was traveling a lot in Argentina, like 3 weeks, meeting thousand people, talked to as many of them, and then suddenly I came to this bridge, and I immediately felt like this is a character I want to see, because there are some people has cinematic quality. I don't know how it's in English. Cinegenetic, or how do you call it? Do you know what I mean? Like we know a term like photogenetic, like when genetic,
right.
when some people are not beautiful in life, for example, but if you make picture of them in photo, they're always interesting, attractive.
So you show their internal beauty and the beauty about who they are and where they are.
Yeah, and sometimes you meet people and whatever they do, the way they move, the way they react to situations, always interesting, surprising, always unpredictable. And the way they put words in the lines, always unusual. So this is all my life I'm trying to find people who is not an actor, but who is much better than Jack Nicholson,
Right. Who are one or two of your favorite characters that you spent time with for this film?
No, of course, this, but unfortunately, I couldn't say it's just my favorite because all these guys interesting.
Yes.
For example, the man in Chile. Can you imagine that someone speaks with sheep? Good morning, Maria. Good morning, Anna. Good morning, Rosa. He's talking with animals like they're people, Or girl in Russia, she said, like, in another life, next life, I would love to be water.
I love that line. Right. And then her friend said, "What about being a human?" No, I'd rather be water. I don't want to be animals. Yes.
Exactly. So it's absolutely unforgettable, and it's pleasure to meet. That's why my job is such a documentary filmmaker is absolutely great job, because you travel and you meet people you will never meet before in life. Otherwise, and then you meet them, and then they tell you something what you never thought before, and it can change your life for better.
How long did it take you in your journeys to find all these places? Like how you went to?
From the first talk with my producer until first premiere in Venice Film Festival, it took me 4 years to do it.
Wow. Just for viewers and listeners, the places that Victor took us were included Russia, Chile, Argentina, China, Botswana, Spain, and actually
you have to explain that there are only few places in the planet has real antipodes. So, for example, in all USA, only Hawaii state has antipode, and it goes to Botswana.
Hawaii goes to Botswana,
right.
and I guess it's just the ocean. If you drilled straight through from
if you
the
dip
U.S.
from the place you are, you will come out in the ocean.
Right.
To Antarctica.
And
unfortunately, people, if you want to see me in your city, I have to run to bus station.
Okay. Well, let me just ask you one more question. Overall, what was your vision, your purpose in making this movie? Just for just a couple minutes.
It's very simple. I don't believe in making normal movie anymore because too many filmmakers, obviously. It's obviously too many, and we don't need to do next film. We only need to, even good film we don't need to do. We need to make an absolutely unusual film. This is first. And second, actually, film has to give you new vision of planet, of the life, of meaning of life. So otherwise it's, if it just tell you story, I don't believe in such art anymore. For me, it's very past. I don't think we have to do it.
And your cinematography, your techniques in filmmaking are very unique. Where you twist and float upside down and do 360-degree turns and juxtapose one place upside down and the other place right side up. And tell me about your techniques and why you do that.
It's again about. I believe we have to start. Everybody who has a pen can say I'm writer, right? But it's not necessary you are Dostoevsky or Lev Tolstoy or Challenger or whatever. It's still question. Everybody has a video camera, but it's not necessary you are Stanley Kubrick. It must be something more than just to have video camera in hand. And too many filmmakers now, so I want to prove that there is something which goes from talent, goes from profession as well. So it's not enough just to be a nice person and have camera and say, oh, I want to save this world and to make documentary. It's the same as if you're a nice person, it's not necessarily a good singer, right?
Right.
Yeah, if it's same. Why people believe if they're nice person and why they believe they're filmmakers? It's not like this. It's not
Right.
Like this.
Well, I want to congratulate you for winning the True Vision Award, and hopefully I will see you this weekend at the True Falls Film Festival.
Right.
All right, so we've come to the end of this week's edition of Global Journalist, produced by the Reynolds Journalism Institute and the Missouri School of Journalism. Joining us today by telephone from New York was Karim Hakim, and from St. Louis, Victor Kossakovksy. Global Journalist is directed by Travis McMillan, audio by Pat Akers, Raymond Tungakar is our executive producer, Camille Phillips was our lead producer with assistance from Neen Pan and Molly Bullock. Now, stay tuned for Free Press Watch and join us again next week for another Global Journalist. I'm David Reed.
And now, Free Press Watch, a segment on Global Journalist where each week we bring you a rundown of major events affecting press freedom around the world. I'm Lainey Mullen. Today's news comes from Athens News, the Committee to Protect Journalists, Global Post, the Sudan Tribune, and Reuters. In Sudan last week, Al Tayar newspaper was shut down on charges of jeopardizing national security. 2 other Sudanese newspapers have already been shut down this year. In Greece, a journalist was fined $33,000 for calling German Chancellor Angela Merkel a vulgar name. 10 other journalists have been sued for the contents of a German magazine about Greek response to the debt crisis. The cover pictures show the statue of Venus de Milo raising her middle finger. In Somalia this week, a radio director was killed by unidentified gunmen. Abukar Mohamud had been working to relaunch a radio station closed in 2010 by the extremist group Al-Shabaab. The Committee to Protect Journalists reported that Somalia is the most dangerous country in Africa for journalists. For more information on these and other events affecting press freedom around the world, please visit our website at globaljournalist.org. Thank you for joining us this week on Global Journalist. I'm Lainey Mullen. See you next week.